What's Muchukunda? Somebody needs to hear about who's Muchukunda, right? Okay. That's a good place to start. Okay, that's where we're going to start. Huh? How? I'll have you tell them about Krishna. I'll tell them about Muchukunda. You tell them about Krishna. How's that? Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not long ago, I was hearing in a lecture, Srila Prabhupada was explaining why he added the word head to Godhead. Would you like to know why he did that? Yes. No, you don't want to know. Okay. He said, of course, there may be more than one reason, but in this particular occasion, he said he wanted to underscore the fact that Krishna is a person, because there are many concepts of God. Some of them are quite vague and amorphous, but Godhead indicates very clearly it's his person. He's a person. Personality of Godhead. This deliverance of Muchukunda comes chronologically after Krishna had left Vrindavan, was brought to Mathura by the non-cruel Akrura, because that's what his name means. The gopi said he was given the wrong name. He's very cruel. So when Akrura brought Krishna to Mathura, many things happened, including finishing Kamsa and Kubalyapida and the wrestlers and all of that. And then, chronologically, what happened was Krishna freed his mother and father from the prison of Kamsa, and then he arranged for the father of Kamsa, named Ugrasena, who was the previous king, but his son imprisoned his father also. He was freed from prison, and there was a ceremony where he was reestablished as the king. So Ugrasena is the king. Ugrasena is in this same dynasty, the Yadu and Andaka and Bhoja dynasty. He was the previous king. And then his mother and father arranged for their son to receive his Gayatri or his Upanayana ceremony from Gargamuni. And then after the Upanayana ceremony, Krishna at this stage is 11 years, 8 months. So they all wanted, mother, father, our son's got to go to school. And Krishna chose the school. There's details and details. It's told towards the chapters 80 and 81. So this is 51, but he went to school, so it's not chronological. It's very logical. This is not chronological. He went to school for 2 months. He finished school in 2 months. He was a fast learner because he already knew everything. And then he delivered the son of his teacher. Sandipani Muni's was his teacher, and he delivered his son, and he went back to Mathura. Now Krishna is young, and so by the time he's 12, because it took a couple of months to finish school, by the time he's 11, he was in Mathura from 11 years for approximately 25 years. Now, there isn't some specific period of time that's identified, but in discussions with other well-read and learned devotees, around 25 years. So you add 11 and 25. What's that number? What's 11? This boy is sharp. I'm going to give you a quiz at the end to see if you can remember some of the things that I'm going to say. He's really a good listener. Great souls. Who were you in your previous life, and who are you going to be in this life? All power to you, man. So Garga Muni played a role very early in Krishna's life. Garga Muni was the one that did the name-giving ceremony for Krishna and Balaram. Garga Muni is the one that gave Krishna his Gayatri mantras. And Garga Muni is the one that also gave association to Muchukunda. Because, here's a take-home lesson. You receive bhakti from one who has bhakti. So where did Muchukunda get his bhakti? Garga Muni, right? Garga Muni. So Garga Muni was a devotee, and he was a superlative. He was a perfected soul. There's many nice things to say about Garga Muni, but at least for the purposes of this, Garga Muni was the root cause of the bhakti within Muchukunda. And he told Muchukunda, he was, one of the things he was good at was astrology. So he did his horoscope. And he told him, wow, you're going to meet the personality of Godhead in this lifetime. Just hang in there. So because he heard that, and he believed Garga Muni, his whole life was, where is Krishna, where is Krishna, where is Krishna? Now later, when he saw Krishna, he didn't recognize him, because he had never seen him before. But anyway, one of the teachings, this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna Bhakti Janma Mula Haya Sadhu Sangha Krishna Prema Janme Tenho Puna Mukhya Anga, an essential limb. The root cause of devotional service to Lord Krishna is sadhu sangha, association with sadhus. Even when one's dormant love for Krishna awakens, association with devotees is still most essential. So supposing one day you become a very advanced devotee. Supposing you become a perfected devotee. Supposing you become like Sanatana Goswami, because this verse was spoken by Lord Chaitanya to Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana Goswami was hearing from Lord Chaitanya about starting from the unregulated masses of living entities in all the different species, and some are in the human form but not yet living like a human being, and some live by the codes of the Vedas and goes up and up and up. So bhakti begins by sadhu sangha, and at the perfected stage, sadhu sangha is essential. So may one of you, especially you, may one of you become, or more of you become, many of you become very advanced devotees, and then please give your association to all the other devotees, and please continue to seek sadhu sangha, however advanced. Essential, according to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we're going to go back a little bit, because this was chapter 50. Back to chapter 43, Krishna's come to Mathura by the kindness of Akrura. He brought them in his fancy chariot. I say fancy chariot because it specifically said When Kamsa sent Akrura, he thought that Akrura will be like me. So I'll get him like a Rolls Royce. I'll get him a new, shiny, fastest model of chariot and best horses. And Akrura wasn't interested in fancy chariots, but he brought him in this fancy chariot to Mathura for the purpose, and Akrura knew the purpose was to kill him. And Akrura knew, he said, "You're inviting your own destiny. Surely I'll go." So there's some history of this elephant named Kuvalyapida. And the history has to do with how Kamsa married the two daughters of Jarasandha, because we're going to hear about Jarasandha. So I'm narrating this so you see the connection. Jarasandha was a bad guy, Kamsa was a bad guy. They're like super demons. Very, 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 very powerful. That's 4 berries. Very powerful. And one time, Jarasandha was on a tour of conquering people. With his armies, he went here and there, and in the course of his travels, he passed through a jungle, and he captured alive this massive elephant, Kuvalyapida. And Kuvalyapida was humongous. He was as big as 10 elephants, really, really, really big. So they put his feet in chains, put big stakes in the ground, so he could then go and conquer other people and so forth. That was Jarasandha. Now, as Providence would arrange it, the elephant broke free. He just yanked the big, big spikes out of the ground and started running. Elephants can run. And he was running. And Jarasandha and his armies were chasing behind him. And as they were chasing and chasing and chasing, the elephant happened to come to the place where Kamsa had a camp. He was doing meditation, austerities, to get greater punya, so he could be, or kriti, so he could use for bad things. Did you know that sometimes powerful demons do austerities? And the reason they do austerities is it gives them strength, and they have a purpose for that strength. Duskriti. Austerities bring kriti, and you can use it for good, sukriti, or you can use it for bad, duskriti. That's what he was doing. He was doing austerities on the bank of a river. And along comes galloping this Kuvalyapida. He was messing up his meditation. So he grabbed a hold of Kuvalyapida, twirled him around, and threw him 30 miles in the air, and he came crashing down at the camp of Jarasandha, coincidentally. And Jarasandha went, "Wow, he's good." So he went to find out who tossed his Kuvalyapida. And when he met Kamsa, he said, "I'd like to make you a gift. You're worthy of a generous gift. I'd like to give you as a gift Kuvalyapida and my 2 daughters in marriage." Kamsa accepted the elephant and the 2 daughters. And this massive elephant was part of the plan that Kamsa had to kill Krishna. Of course, it kind of went the other way around. They got him intoxicated. I've learned this word. There's this word, mada, M-A-D-A, when an elephant is in this wild state. From the temples of their large head comes this syrupy, oozing substance when they're just mad. So he had that smeared over the sides of his temples. And the elephant trainers, as you see in the painting, they were goading him on, getting him to go trample Krishna. But when he went to trample Krishna, Krishna very deftly went between his legs, and then he grabbed his trunk, and as he was grabbing his trunk, he pulled really hard, and when he pulled really hard, he fell to the ground. And when he fell to the ground, Krishna then twirled him around, kind of like a toy. And then after he twirled him around, he went and grabbed his tusks, and he broke off his tusks, and he gave one to Balaram, and he and Balaram were smashing and smashing and smashing and smashing. Kuvalyapita was finished. And after Kuvalyapita was finished, this is a lot of paintings of this one, they carried the tusks over their shoulder, the bloodied end in the backside, and they went striding into the wrestling arena. And here comes, that was chapter 43. Here is chapter 44. You see up on the upper right corner, there's someone really interested in what's going on down there. That's Kamsa in the high seat, in the big king's seat. The two brothers, Chanura and Mushtaka, and look over on the left. Those two brothers had three more brothers. So Krishna fought Chanura, Balaram fought Mushtaka. And just so you can appreciate the artistry of our BBT paintings, look at Krishna's eyes. Look at this massive wrestler. Look at the three brothers in the background. And you look closely, and Krishna is not perspiring, but the wrestler is perspiring. And then the people in the audience watching this whole thing thinking, this is so unfair. Look how small is Krishna, how big are these big, massive wrestlers. But we know what happened. Krishna finished, and Balaram finished them both. The three brothers jumped up and started attacking the Krishna Balaram. They were finished. And then Krishna looked up on this elevated seat, and he saw Kamsa, and he grabbed him by the hair and threw him to the ground. And one violent punch finished him. One punch. There's Balaram. Look at over behind him. He's kind of just leaning on the ivory tusk of the elephant and not so concerned. Now we're going to zero in and see the expression on Kamsa's face. Krishna's really enthusiastic to just smash him hard. One punch. That's all it took. Is there a lesson? However you may be able to throw an elephant as big as 10 elephants in the air and toss him around, but don't mess with Krishna. He's all powerful. So, when Krishna finished him with this one punch, the people were so afraid. Kamsa was so cruel and so powerful. Is he just knocked out or is he dead? So Krishna dragged him around. And everyone throwing confetti and, flowers and, yay, Jai Shri Krishna. Kamsa's finished. And then he went to the prison, relieved his mother and father. Ugrasena was installed on the throne. Krishna went to school. And now we're going to a little bit fast forward to chapter 50, which is our chapter. Krishna establishes the city of Dwarka. Actually, 51 is our chapter. So, why did Krishna establish the city of Dwarka? Well, the king of Magadha, Jarasandha, had a father. His father's name was Brihadrath. And Brihadrath had no sons, although he also had two queens. Both of those queens were daughters of the king of Kashi. No sons, no sons, no sons. So what did he do? He did what sometimes our great kings would do. He went to the forest to undergo austerities and somehow get a benediction from someone that he could have a son. So one sage named Kaushika Rishi gave him the benediction that he could have sons, or had a son, And he gave him one mango. And he told one mango could be given to his co-wives, and he would then have a son. So he was very happy. He went back and gave the mango, cut it in half, and sure enough, very soon the co-wives had a son, or at least they had half a son. One gave birth to half a son, the other gave birth to the other half. Unusual, right? Little unusual. So the king, Brihadrath, was shown the two halves of the child that was born from these two co-queens. So he had them discard them. And as he had them discard them, there was this witch named Jara. And Jara found them, and she was going to eat them, but she just kind of curiosity took the two halves and put the two halves together. And they became whole and became alive. So she understood this is the son, these two halves is the son of Brihadrath. So she took the two halves as now a whole and brought them to Brihadrath as one child. This is your son. She had just one request. Can you name the son after me? So the son was named Jarasandha. Jarasandha. And Jarasandha became king after his father, and he had two daughters, Asti and Prapti, and both daughters married Kamsa, as well as the Kuvalayapita gift. However, when Krishna killed Kamsa, that left the two sisters, Asti and Prapti, as widows. So what did they do? They went back to Jarasandha's kingdom and said, Daddy, take revenge. This person just killed our husband. Take revenge. So he took a vow. He gathered massive army. His vow was he would destroy not only Krishna, but the entire dynasty. He was a powerful person, remember? Very powerful. Very, very powerful. So he gathered 13 divisions of soldiers. There's a Sanskrit word, Akshohini. 13 divisions of soldiers. How big is one Akshohini? Here's the numbers. 21,870 chariots. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you that number. But he'll probably remember it anyways. Same number of elephants. 109, 300,000, I don't know how they get this number. 350 infantry, that's, people by foot, and then people on horses. 65,610. He had 13 of those. 13. And he went, so geographically, where's Mathura in relation to Magadha? Magadha is due east. So he came in a westerly direction with 13 of these Akshohini divisions to attack the city of Mathura, not only to kill Krishna, but to annihilate all of the whole dynasty. Well, it didn't work out so well for him. When Krishna saw all these soldiers coming, he said, Balaram, you just stay here, protect everybody inside the city wall. I'll go myself alone. And Krishna alone in one chariot destroyed the entire army except for one person, Jarasandha. And Krishna said, you can go home now. And Jarasandha was, as it says, for one who has once been honored, what's the rest? Dishonor is worse than death. Krishna didn't kill him, he just dishonored him. So he's going back to the Magadha kingdom thinking, better to give up my life. This is total humiliation. One soldier defeated my entire 13 Akshauhini divisions. Not like, boy, is he really powerful. It was just like, how did this happen? So when he got back to his kingdom, he told his ministers that was his plan. His minister says, no. It was just one of those things. You weren't ready, and he was ready, and get your armies together and go another time. You'll be victorious. Yes, I'll be victorious. I'm very powerful. So that's what he did. And he was again defeated, except for himself standing on the battlefield, and Krishna said, go back home. And Krishna liked it because one of the reasons, some of you like reading Bhagavad Gita. And according to Bhagavad Gita, there are three principal purposes Krishna has to fulfill when he comes to this world. Pritranaya sadhunam, vinashaya taduskritam, dharma sangsthapanartaya. For those of you that are newer, what does that mean? Krishna comes to protect the devotees, to annihilate the Jarasandha people, the demoniac kings, because he appeared because Mother Earth personified came in the form of a cow and pleaded with Lord Vishnu to please give me protection. Too many demoniac kings on the surface of this earth. So he agreed to come. So he was eliminating. He didn't have to go anywhere. The demoniac kings just came to him and just finished them. And next. It happened 17 times. And each time the same thing happened. One would think he'd kind of get it, right? Not Jarasandha. And persons who are foolish, they have a tendency to be a little stubborn. Like, the obvious is not obvious. Somehow they just didn't get it. 17 times with massive armies. So then something very interesting happened. The 18th time, something very interesting happened. And the 18th time, what happened was, there was a son of Gargamuni. Remember his name, Gargamuni? Gargamuni had a son. He had his daughter too. Gargya was being ridiculed by the Yadu members. They were calling him names. They were calling him a eunuch. And he was very disturbed. So he went to South India and he engaged in austerities for a long time. The austerities that he underwent for a long time was he ate powdered iron, yummy, for 12 years. Yummy. I don't know what Ayurvedic doctor he went to after doing that. But and his purpose was, the austerity was to get a benediction from Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva came, asked what benediction he would want, and he requested the power to have a son that would bring terror to the Yadu dynasty. So be it. He went back to Mathura. Lord Shiva's promise is going to be fulfilled somehow. What happened was, there was a Yavana king who also was childless. And during this previous period of time, if a king was childless, it was within the codes of the Vedas that a Brahmana could give pregnancy to his queen, and that child would be his child. So that's what happened. Gargya was recognized as a very elevated person. This Yavana king, the Yavana dynasty was in kind of like the northwest direction. Northwest direction means the Middle East. From Mathura, northwest, the Yavana kingdom. So a child was produced, and this child's name became Kalyavana. Now Kalyavana was also himself very, very powerful. Okay, you're going to read this history. Here's the history. I'll just read it. This is Vishwanath Chakravarti. The history comes from Vishnu Purana. Gargya, son of Gargamuni, was ridiculed by his brother-in-law as a eunuch. And when the Yadavas heard, they laughed. So he wanted to get back. He did this austerity for 12 years, just eating powdered iron. Lord Shiva gave him the benediction. He went back home. The childless king of the Yavanas requested a son from him. The son was born, Kalyavana. So here's some detail about his character. He possessed the fury of Lord Shiva in his aspect of Mahakala. What's Mahakala? Mahakala, Maha means great and Kala means time. We know from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, time I am the destroyer of all things. So Mahakala is the destroyer of all things, big time. So the fury of Kalyavana was like that of Mahakala. It was really intense. And his chest was as hard as the tip of a thunderbolt. So Narada Muni was visiting their kingdom one time. He asked Narada Muni, who's the most powerful king on earth? He said, the Yadavas, the most powerful. He said, great, I'm going. I want a big fight. No. What I just read is from Vishnu Purana, and as you see on the screen here, the very same understanding is given in Garga Samhita. So then what happened? So Kalyavana, that's this picture, he came at the same time from the northwest that for the 18th time Jarasandha is coming from the east. And Krishna and Balaram had spies or scouts, and they, somebody sent them a text message, and they found out this attack is coming from two directions. And the size of Kalyavana's army, I forget the number, something like 30 million soldiers. From Brihat Bhagavatamrita, here's what it says. Because Gargya, what's Brihat Bhagavatamrita, by the way? Brihat Bhagavatamrita is Sanatana Goswami's description of, kind of like one of the ways to describe it, it's an explanation of Srimad Bhagavatam, but it's written in a story form. Because Gargya and others were inimical to the Yadavas and the Pandavas, who were all staunch Vaishnavas, Lord Shiva rewarded their worship with imperfect boons. That is, they could bring terror. He was a terrorist, but couldn't harm them. It's kind of an ineffective terrorist, but that's what Lord Shiva gave the benediction for. Gargya Balaki was a learned son of the sage Garga. This is straight from the Upanishads. Who was too proud of his acquired knowledge. By Lord Shiva's blessing, Gargya obtained a son, but not one who could destroy the Yadu dynasty, as Gargya wanted, only one who could frighten and frustrate the Yadus. So some massive number of soldiers, 30 million. That's what my memory says. And so what did Krishna do? Krishna saw these two armies. He turned to Balaram and said, some Yadus may be harmed. So I request, you hold off the armies, and I'm going to have Vishvakarma build another residence besides Mathura, and that's where Dwarka was built. Vishvakarma in a jiffy built the whole city of Dwarka with all of its palaces and avenues and roads and parks, and he was really good. He did it really fast. And Krishna then transported everybody, the whole, it's a big dynasty, settled them in their living quarters and came back to the battlefield. Doesn't say how long it took, but it was fast, really fast. Because when he reached the battlefield, the soldiers were there on the battlefield. Balaram had held them off. And when Krishna came onto the battlefield, he was seen by Kalyavana. And when Kalyavana saw him, he saw his forearms, he saw his golden crown, and he saw his dark complexion. He had heard from Narada Muni a little bit what Krishna looked like. And so he immediately went running after Krishna. You see in the painting, he's holding a lotus flower, and it's in its club and everything. So Kalyavana started chasing him. Krishna started running. Now, one of the rules of a Kshatriya, because in this stage Krishna's performing the function of a Kshatriya, Kshatriyas don't run from the battlefield. It's not to be done. You stand and fight. But he ran. So it was cowardice. So in Kshatriya codes, that's bad. But when Krishna runs, it's good. In fact, there's one of the names of Krishna is honoring the fact that he ran from the battlefield. And some of you know that name. It starts with an R. Do you know the name? Ranchor. R-A-N-C-H-O-R. Ranchor. Ranchor. So Ranchor ran from the battle. And Kalyavana is running after him, calling bad names. Stop, coward. Stand and fight. Krishna's looking over his shoulder, smiling, keeps running. Where's Krishna running to? And so Kalyavana would run faster, Krishna would run fast. It says, just out of reach. Enough that he would keep chasing him. But just out of reach. Just out of reach. And they went some distance. And what Krishna was doing was he was leading Kalyavana to a cave. And who was in the cave? Muchukunda. What's Muchukunda doing in a cave? You know the reason? You know the reason. Yeah. Muchukunda, besides having a benediction from Gargamuni that one day he would see the Supreme Lord, Muchukunda was a very, very powerful warrior. So powerful of a warrior that on one occasion the demigods requested him to come to their kingdom and assist them in defending against an attack by the demons. And it was day and night, because demons don't follow any rules. It was day and night battle. Day and night and day and night and night and day and day and night and night and day. For a long time, for years. Muchukunda was very powerful, but he was getting a little tired. Eventually, the demigods got a substitute. Kartikeya, who is one of the sons of Lord Shiva, came on the scene. They said, he'll take over. You're now relieved of this being the commander of our demigod army, and we'd like to give you a benediction for what you've done to serve us so nicely. You protected us from the attack of the demons. He said, I have just one request. I want to sleep. I want to sleep in such a way that no one will come and wake me. I just have unlimited rest, as much as I require. And he said, here's a second one. The second one, if someone wakes me untimely, then instantly they'll burn into ashes. He was thinking the demigods might come back and tap him on the shoulder and say, come back and do some more of this. You did a good job. So Muchukunda was in the cave. And Krishna knew that Muchukunda was in the cave. So Krishna wanted to give honor to his devotee. And he wanted to fulfill the prediction of Gargamuni that one day that Muchukunda would see in person the personality of Godhead. So there's Muchukunda running after Krishna. Krishna went into the cave. And when Krishna went into the cave, Muchukunda couldn't find him. Then over on the side, he saw somebody lying down. He thought, oh, he's taken rest. So he went over and kicked him. That was a mistake. Because it wasn't Krishna, it was Muchukunda. And as soon as Muchukunda was woken, untimely, the benediction of the demigods immediately occurred, and fire came from his eyes, and instantly body of Kalyavana burst into flames. And now we're in chapter 51. So, Muchukunda in 50, this is the chapter that we started with, remember? So Muchukunda, was the son of Mandata. Mandata was a king in the Ikshvaku dynasty. What's the Ikshvaku dynasty? Ikshvaku dynasty, let's go back. Some of you like reading Bhagavad Gita. Yes? And in Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, we hear Ikshvaku's name mentioned. How do we hear Ikshvaku's name? Krishna says to Arjuna, long, long ago I taught this imperishable science to the sun god, Vivaswan. Vivaswan taught it to his son, Manu. Manu taught it to his son, Ikshvaku. So Ikshvaku, this is from Ramayana, Ikshvaku was given a kingdom on earth built by his father, Vivasvata Manu, that became known as Ayodhya, and Ikshvaku started the dynasty, the Sun dynasty. Krishna appeared in the Moon dynasty, but Mandata was in the Sun dynasty, or the dynasty of Ikshvaku. He was the son of Mandata, and Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur writes in his commentary about Muchukunda. Muchukunda was extremely old, having taken birth at the very beginning of this Manvantara. Manvantara means the Manu, our particular Manu. So in our particular Manu, Krishna appears once during the current Manu, Vivasvata Manu, in the 28th Yuga cycle. 28th or 27th? 28th Yuga cycle. So some of you are new. Maybe you don't know what all this is about. But just to keep it simple. Long, long ago, like many, many thousands and thousands of years ago. So Muchukunda was by age really old. Not only he was really old, he was really tall, because in previous ages people were very tall. And then their stature reduced and their stature reduced. And by the end of this age, the stature is going to be really pygmy-like. And the duration of life will also be much shorter. So Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur writes, when people saw him, they would say, oh, who is this very tall and stout man? Now, Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur is making his statement from a different Purana and during a different day of Brahma. So Muchukunda was really around for a long time. Here are some of the characteristics that we find in Scripture about Muchukunda. He was very devoted to being charitable to Brahmanas. He was true to his vow. Whenever he said something, he kept his word. He was very selfless. And he left his kingdom just to help the demigods. And when he came back, his kingdom was gone because so much time had passed. Nobody knew him. He didn't know anybody. But he wanted to rest anyway, so he just off in this cave. And he was very wise. These are descriptions of his character. And undeviatingly determined and humble. Those are two great qualities. To be very determined, sometimes people are proud. Sometimes people are humble, they're not so determined. But he is a very special person. And he had this benediction from Gargamuni that one day he would see Krishna. So, after Muchukunda was cindered, after Kalyavana was cindered, Muchukunda looked around the cave and he saw this bright light. And he understood, somebody's in the cave with me. So he asked, who are you? And here's a nice painting showing how tall Muchukunda is in comparison to Krishna. So Muchukunda wanted to know, who is this standing before me? And I don't have, do you have Bhagavatam here? Could you get Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 51. I meant to bring it, but I didn't. But you're prepared because you're a Krishna conscious community here. Canto 10, Chapter 51. So, Krishna is going to respond. I'll read as soon as the book comes. And he says that the family in which he's taken his birth, and he gives his name, and essentially says, I'm the one that you were supposed to meet. Gargamuni said, you're going to meet me. And then Muchukunda offers his prayers to Krishna, which are very beautiful. Can I have it? Can I have the book, please? '51. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Krishna said, my dear friend, I've taken thousands of births, lived thousands of lives, and accepted thousands of names. In fact, my births, activities, and names are limitless, and thus even I cannot count them. Nice introduction. Who are you? After many lifetimes, someone might count the dust particles on earth, but no one can ever finish counting my qualities, activities, names, and births. O King, the greatest sages enumerate my births and activities which take place throughout the three phases of time. Past, present, future, right? But never do they reach the end of them. Nonetheless, O friend, I will tell you about my current birth, name, and activities. Kindly hear. Some time ago, Lord Brahma requested me to protect religious principles and destroy the demons who were burdening the earth. Thus, I descended in the Yadu dynasty in the home of Anakundundubi. Who is Anakundundubi? That's a name of Vasudeva, who is Krishna's father. And the name Anakundundubi means when he was born, there were a lot of musical instruments making a big clamor because it was known that he was perfectly truthful. Thus his name, Anakundundubi. So Krishna is saying, I took my birth as his son. Indeed, because I am the son of Vasudeva, people call me Vasudeva. I have killed Kalanemi, reborn as Kamsa, as well as Pralamba and other enemies of the pious. And now, O king, this barbarian has been burnt to ashes by your piercing glance. Since in the past you repeatedly prayed to me, I have personally come to this cave to show you mercy, for I am affectionately inclined to my devotees. Now, here comes the test. We're going to hear about the test. Now, it's a nice one, but the test is, do you want something material or not? So the test is, choose some benediction from me, O saintly king. I will fulfill all your desires. One who has satisfied me need never again lament. Blank check. Fill in the amount. How much? So what's Muchukunda going to say? Here's Muchukunda's prayers, starting with text 45. O Lord, the people of this world, both men and women, are bewildered by your illusory energy, unaware of their real benefit. They do not worship you, but instead seek happiness by entangling themselves in family affairs, which are actually sources of misery. That person who has an impure mind, who, despite having somehow or other automatically obtained the rare and highly evolved human form of life, does not worship your lotus feet, like an animal that has fallen into a blind well. Such a person has fallen into the darkness of material home. I've wasted all this time, oh, unconquerable one, becoming more and more intoxicated by domain and opulence as an earthly king, misidentifying the mortal body as the self, becoming attached to children, wives, treasury, and land. I suffered endless anxiety. With deep arrogance, I took myself to be the body, which is a material object like a pot or wall. Thinking myself a god among men, I traveled the earth surrounded by my charioteers, elephants, cavalry, foot soldiers, and generals, disregarding you in my deluding pride. A man obsessed with thoughts of what he thinks needs to be done, intensely greedy, and delighting in sense enjoyment, is suddenly confronted by you, who are ever alert, like a hungry snake licking its fangs before a mouse. You appear before him as death. The body that at first rides high on fierce elephants and chariots adorned with gold is known by the name King, is later by your invincible power of time called feces, worms, or ashes. Having conquered the entire circle of directions and being thus free of conflict, a man sits on a splendid throne receiving praise from leaders who were once his equals. But when he enters the women's chambers, where sex pleasure is found, he is led about like a pet animal, O Lord. A king who desires even greater power than he already has, strictly performs his duties, carefully practices austerities, and foregoing sense enjoyment. But he whose urges are so rampant, thinking, I am independent and supreme, cannot attain happiness. When the material life of a wandering soul has ceased, this is a celebrated verse. I'll say it ahead of time, and then we'll read it, and then we'll analyze. This is called an alankara, which means a literary ornament, where the cause and effect are reversed. The cause and effect, when cause and effect are reversed, it's in a literary ornament. It's to bring emphasis on the effect. So the effect is that he has become a liberated soul. The cause is the association of devotees. So he says it in reverse. When the material life of a wandering soul has ceased, O Achyuta, he may attain the association of your devotees. And when he associates with them, there awakens in him devotion unto you for the goal of all the devotees and the Lord of all causes and effects. So here's the verse. And it's what I just read, so I don't need to read it again. And here's the explanation from our commentators. Ati Shayokti is emphasis by extreme assertion. This is a literary ornament. It is the association of Lord's devotees that enables one to transcend material existence. But the verse says when one has transcended material existence, one gets the association of devotees. Ati Shayokti is an apparent inversion of sequence. The merciful association of the Lord's devotees makes possible our determination to become Krishna conscious. So he's saying, thanks but no thanks. You're inviting me to have more entanglement? No thanks. My Lord, I think that you have shown me mercy, since my attachment to my kingdom has spontaneously ceased. Such freedom is prayed for by saintly rulers of vast empires who desire to enter the forest for a life of solitude. O all-powerful one, I desire no boon other than your lotus feet, the boon most eagerly sought by those free of material desire. O Hari, what enlightened person who worships you, the giver of liberation, would choose a boon that causes his own bondage? Therefore, having put aside all objects of material desire, which are bound to the modes of passion, ignorance, and goodness, I am approaching you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for shelter. You are not covered by mundane designations. Rather, you are the Supreme Absolute Truth, full of pure knowledge and transcendental to the material modes. He goes on. Krishna smiling. And here's what Krishna says. It's short and sweet. O Emperor, great ruler, your mind is pure and potent. Though I enticed you with benedictions, your mind was not overcome by material desires. Understand that I enticed you with benedictions just to prove that you would not be deceived. The intelligence of my unalloyed devotees is never diverted by material benedictions. The minds of non-devotees who engage in such practices as pranayama are not fully cleansed of material desires. Thus, O king, material desires are again and again seen to arise in their minds. Then the parting words, wander this earth at will, with your mind fixed on me. May you always possess such unfailing devotion for me. So it's not just like, I hope that happens. It's the benediction of what's going to happen. Then he says something curious. Because you follow the principles of a Kshatriya, you killed living beings while hunting and performing other duties. You must vanquish the sins thus incurred by carefully executing penances while remaining surrendered unto me, O king. In your very next life you'll become an excellent Brahmana, the greatest well-wisher of all creatures, and certainly come to me alone. No, it's not likely going to happen in our life. With practical application, not likely we're going to be living in a cave somewhere for who knows how long, thousands of years, having fought a battle to protect the demigods from the armies of the demons that were attacking them. But there are tests that we also endure. And I remember hearing Srila Prabhupada in one morning lecture, Prabhupada describing Krishna's testing his devotee. It's very simple. Krishna, the devotee may say to Krishna, because they heard it, they say, "Oh, Krishna, please engage me in your service." So Krishna will say, "Oh, are you sure you want to be engaged in my service? What about a little sense gratification, Prabhupada made that sound in his voice. And then Prabhupada went like this. The devotee says, "No. I only want your service." And Krishna will say, maybe he or she wants me. What about a little difficulty, And the devotee will say, "Let the difficulty come, I only want your devotional service." And Krishna will then say, "Oh, it seems they do want me. Then let me give myself to them." So now that's not us, Mochakunda, living in a cave and being tested by Krishna in that way. But it happens. Krishna tested the gopis. You know the story, Krishna tested Rukmini. You know the story? Krishna tested Rukmini. It's a nice story. It comes later in the Bhagavatam, the 10th canto. Krishna was with Rukmini in Dwarka. And he was testing, doesn't mean like, pass, fail, or, I'll spank you if you don't get a good mark in your test. It was, he wanted to show her nature to others, to the world, to us. So he said, I'm not fit to be your husband. Here's my disqualifications. I'm this and I'm that and the other thing and the other thing. Really, I'm unfit to be your husband. So you should find a suitable husband. And I won't mind. It's okay. And hearing Krishna speak like that, she was in disbelief. She thought maybe he's going to leave. And it's said, she was like a banana tree cut. She just fell to the ground, crashing to the ground. With the thought that Krishna may have meant what she said. And he was so pleased. What love you have for me, who can say? Your love is completely pure. So he was examining Rukmini, and it was true what he knew what she would do. Krishna left the company. So Krishna, the company of the gopis, Krishna will test us also in different ways. But the good news is, he'll never test you beyond what you're capable of handling. This is described in the story of Bali Maharaj, who was also tested by Vamana. He had him bound up, and he didn't protest, even though he surrendered everything. He didn't protest. And then Vamana declared, "I just wanted to show all of you. I wanted to show the world. Just see. the qualification of Bali Maharaj. And Prabhupada's comment is exactly that. He said, Krishna will test us, and he'll never put you in a test that you cannot succeed. He'll give you the strength to succeed. He'll never give you a test that will break you, because he knows what your capacity is. So we may get little tests. We may get medium tests. We may get big tests. Maybe you know somebody. Maybe you're one of those somebodies that got a big test. And then where's your attention going to go? Generally, where attention goes is problem solving. And when you're problem solving, guess where your attention isn't going? So the test is to strengthen our shelter in Krishna. Just like the where is he? The topic. Where's our mridanga player? That, have sorrow.
Yes.
Huh?
I sent the document.
No, that's the document. The devotee that was bringing this point up. Not here. Okay. So one of your members here of the Harmony Collective brought this topic up. Sometimes there's difficulty, and sometimes that difficulty brings sorrow. But that sorrow has an impetus to take deeper shelter of Krishna. And that's when you pass the test. It depends on how attached you are. In Muchakunda's case, he is saying, this has taken away all the other false shelters, and now I have only one thing. And please don't offer me these other things, because I'm not interested. I only want one thing. So loss can have that advantage. False shelters are taken. And then what? I just got a letter today, a really a long, very introspective letter from a really nice devotee somewhere in the world. And they're going through this, what they were calling spiritual adolescence, where they had, as a young Hare Krishna person, they had this view that, everything is what they painted the picture a certain way in their life, and their relationships were like that, and relationships weren't real relationships, because they weren't real relationships. They were just, head in the clouds. And then, some they kind of grew up a little bit spiritually, and now they're in this transition phase where they recognize there's things inside that shouldn't be there. And the things in my relationships, because of the things inside, that shouldn't be there. And I've hurt people, and and all of that stuff. Adolescence, spiritual adolescence. So they're like, they didn't use this metaphor. I was thinking visually, they got picked up by the heels, and they were being shaken by the heels, and upside down and shaken. Now, they had resources. And fortunately, they were taking shelter of those resources to help them get more shelter of Krishna. And it was uncomfortable. I mean, transition is uncomfortable. Adolescence is uncomfortable. Going from this to that and leaving behind that, there's sorrow. And going to this is uncertain. And the transition is uncomfortable. So if you're experiencing some turbulence and you're growing in Krishna consciousness, you're doing a good job. Say it the other way. If you're not, maybe something's wrong. It's cosmetic, and wait a while, and the cosmetic is going to wear off, and then it becomes the reality. As so taking shelter of Krishna is a spiritual adventure. And it has its discomfort leaving behind the material shelters. And, the good news is Krishna will help you. That's the good news. Every step, every moment, Krishna's there. You're not alone. The teachings are with you. The personality of Godhead is with you. Even when there's tests going on, Krishna will test. That's okay. Here's what Krishna said again. O Emperor, great ruler, your mind is pure and potent. Though I enticed you with benedictions, your mind was not overcome by material desires. So here's the painting of Krishna testing Rukmini. Towards the end of this chapter, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes the point that this Muchukunda narration is from a different kalpa. Or there are Muchukunda pastimes from a different kalpa. Different kalpa means a different day of Brahma. Because Krishna comes only once in the day of Brahma. So from a different day of Brahma, there's another Muchukunda. Muchukunda thought, alas, alas, Krishna wants to separate me from his association. From now on, that can't be, it just can't be. Noticing Muchukunda's great anxiety, Krishna then thought as follows. In this incarnation, he should not associate with me directly. All the personal associates in my pastimes have taken birth in Dwapara Yuga, such as Uddhava, Akrura, Arjuna, and Yudhishthira. Muchukunda, however, is extremely old, having taken birth at the very beginning of this Manvantar. When people see him, they will laugh and say, aha, who is this very tall and stout man who is such a poor match for the Lord? Even now, during the pastime of fleeing from Jarasandha, as well as later in pastimes such as the kidnapping of Rukmini, it will not be at all fitting for this person to be associated with me while I'm fighting, the likes of Shalva and others. He will take these opponents of mine and crush them in his hands like mosquitoes. What excuse can I make up, therefore, to separate him from my association? After thinking like this, Krishna decided the only means to accomplish this would be to speak some false words in order to mislead Muchukunda. Thus he spoke this verse. This verse was, you've done some sinful activities by hunting in the forest and so forth and so on, so you're going to have to atone for them. You go to the Himalayas, atone for them in the Himalayas. In your next birth, you'll become a Brahmana. Now, my understanding is he's got some other service awaiting him aside from what's here. In your very next birth, you'll be the best friend of all living entities. At that time, you and I will act for their benefit by giving them transcendental knowledge as suits the circumstances, becoming a universally respected and learned Brahmana, Dvija Vara. You will attain me alone due to your lack of possessiveness and mood of renunciation. In other words, you will remain in my association. So this is the final painting. Off he goes to the Himalayas. That's the Himalayas, by the way. And he's tall, and he's going to the Himalayas, and he's going to do what Krishna said to do, with his mind completely absorbed, with the benediction that not may it happen, it will happen. So that's it, Muchukunda, the story of Muchukunda, with many layers of other things in between. So let's see if there's some discussion. Now I was wondering how we're going to do this. It's this. I'm used to the space upstairs, but this is much better space. Okay. Any comments or questions, or do we have a microphone? Right behind you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj, for this wonderful pictorial narration of the pastime.
I like images.
Yeah.
I like.
I couldn't wink my eyes for a moment.
Huh?
I couldn't wink my eyes. I was waiting to wink my eyes because they were so enchanting presentation. Thank you. I have only one question. I mean, my second question was answered by you, but towards the end about the sin point, which is very funny how Krishna tricked him at the end. At the beginning of the presentation, right at the very beginning, you have a picture of Krishna and there's Radharani offering of some flowers to him.
Yeah.
And then the chapter started, chapter 51. I was wondering, why did you choose that picture for that page?
I'm not sure. I like the picture. You want to see it again?
Sure.
Once upon a time, a few lifetimes ago, I was a new devotee. And this was one of those paintings that I really liked. I used to chant in front of this painting. And I was charmed by the mood of Radharani and the mood of Krishna and the beauty of the painting. So it has a special place in here. But I don't remember if that's the reason why. But since you're asking the question, it would make sense. It's what's inside comes out, right? Okay. Something else? Yes, in the front row.
Being here and hearing this beautiful pastime, especially from your lotus mouth. Maharaj, I was just thinking about this point, thinking about Muchkunda when Krishna is giving him material benediction and he chooses and he gives beautiful prayers.
Well, he didn't use the adjective material. He just said any benediction. And so he asked for benediction, attachment to your lotus feet. But most people don't think that way. Go ahead. I'm editing before you finish your
Thank you,
question. I'm
Maharaj.
sorry.
Thank you. The question which I have, Maharaj, is here we see Muchkunda, in Chaitanya Charitamrita we see Punrik Vidyanidhi. Apparently they look like they have a lot of opulence, which we say living in the world but off the world. How do we apply that principle? How do we actually live?
Well, most of us don't have to worry about that because we won't be so opulent. But everybody has some, and so the real concern is how to avoid the attachment to it, whatever it is. Because with attachment to it comes other problems. The answer is by leveraging or transferring attachment from matter to offering flowers at the lotus feet of Krishna, to service to Krishna. By attachment, and it's not just the offering of flowers, it's the mood of love when doing what we do, whatever that is, the mood of love in doing what we do unto Krishna, that Krishna is to be pleased. So then if there's nice flowers or it's winter in Ypsilanti and there's not many nice flowers, then you offer what you have. Meager, but you offer what you have. And then when you have some opulence and you it's the same principle. It's not yours, it's something that's meant for being offered to Krishna. So that the protection against the affinity for enjoyment of opulence, modest or in between or great, is the mood of bhakti is the protective feature of life. It protects us from either extreme, have or have not. So if you can find bhakti, pay any price. That's protection. corner? Over the corner? Way in the corner?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for the class. I think so. My question would be a little bit similar to the one asked before. Just like how Krishna is giving Muchukunda an option of, like while testing, that you can either choose whatever you want. It's like a blank check. You can ask whatever you want. But Muchukund goes for nothing but Krishna. And just like Srila Prabhupada explained that, a devotee will always say no to something that is material and accept whatever is favorable to Krishna consciousness. I think so. I struggle with understanding, like, for an example, if I have an opportunity in life and I don't know if this opportunity is good for my spiritual growth or not, or if it will prove to be helpful in my, my spiritual journey, or if it will balance my material and spiritual aspect of life. How can I how can I understand if any opportunity that comes, if I should take it or not? Or just, yeah.
I got the question. I was just waiting for the punchline, but I saw where the train was going when you started. The question you asked is, how do you know, not what should you do? Now, if you don't know, there's different options. One of them is just pause until you get more clarity. You go into a mode of goodness place and you reflect. You don't impulsively accept or reject. You go to a mode of goodness place and you try to see as best you can in the light of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Supposing that you do that and there's still not clarity, now what do you do? Especially, how long can you wait, because sometimes opportunities go away. And so you pause too long and it's too late. It may have been beneficial, but it's too late. So you can't just wait forever. So then, this is like a little menu list of things that you can do. How you can know is it takes purity. You go to one who is pure and you seek guidance. It's not like you're asking the person who's pure to decide for you. You're responsible to decide, not someone, and then they hold the credit or the blame if it was a good decision or not. You're the choosing one. It's your opportunity. It's coming to you, and so you have to make the choice, not somebody else makes the choice for you. So what I'm saying is, seeking guidance doesn't mean becoming mindless, or you abandon your free will. You toss it up in the air and let somebody else do it for you. You have to we're responsible for the choices we make, not somebody else. That's my point. And so you'd seek guidance. Sometimes, here's another option. One of my godbrothers has said, he shared with me, when he is in those situations, here's what he does. He prays a lot and chants extra because the opportunity, I mean, of course, that's good in any circumstance, but you're seeking purity. Reading from Scripture. Could you lean this way a little bit? Yeah, thanks. Read from Scripture. Often when you read from, you just at random open, and there's the answer. You just didn't see it before, but it just jumps off the page. There's the answer. And so then you have to be careful, because there's the big picture of what Scripture says, and one passage may not be the big picture of what Scripture says. So you read Prabhupada's books and become connected to Shastra. And then he said, then I ask persons who I look up to as wise people, and not ask them to make the decision for me, but what are your thoughts? You know me, you're wise, you see this, this is what I see. Do you see what I see? Do you see it as I see it? What would your thoughts be about, accepting or not accepting? So you wait, there's 3 scales, and then you make a choice. Then supposing, here's one more. Supposing you choose yes or no. When you're in the position of not being certain, you got your super soul channel turned on, and you're looking for some indication from super soul. Was this right? And super soul may give you an indication. Yes, it was right, or it wasn't really right. And you're very flexible. You're ready to retrace your steps and go back to no. But you go into it too far, and it's too late. But in the beginning stages, some indication from super soul, giving some indication. Now, your Shiksha gurus and or Diksha guru are good persons to go to. But even when you go to those persons, it's your decision. Don't abdicate free will and become a zombie or something. Be submissive to, but make decisions and take responsibility for the consequences of those decisions. I'm repeating that because I see it happens where people abdicate, and then the blame goes to because something's going to happen. It's not always going to be roses and perfect. And then if it doesn't go roses and perfect, then I blame somebody because they didn't give me good advice. When it was you made the decision, not they made the decision for you. I'm pretty careful about that, not making decisions for people. Here's a mirror. Here's what I see. Anyway, it ultimately depends on your Krishna consciousness. So therefore, in the long run, aside from one particular circumstance or another, the long run is purity. That's what Krishna is saying here to Mujukunda. Because you're pure, you're clear. Many cases, the indications of Scripture will tell you the answer. That which is favorable, that which is not favorable. In in many cases, it's not so difficult. Favorable, unfavorable. Accept things favorable. Anukulyasya sankalpa. You know the verse. Pratikulyasya varjanam. You said it in English. You accept things that are favorable for bhakti and reject things that are not favorable for bhakti. You just said it in English. But, so that's the principle. So your question, what's favorable for bhakti? Then what's bhakti? That which is going to bring me closer to always remembering Krishna, never forgetting Krishna. Anything else? You have something.
Yes. I have two questions. The first one is
Volume? Can you touch the volume
Krishna.
button?
So I have two questions. The first one is, so if a devotee, we heard that Krishna never gives us the test. Krishna never gives a test that we cannot pass. So if the devotee does, and externally was to fail, doesn't mean it wasn't a test.
No. And it doesn't mean it was a fail either. Let's say, for example, the fail would be, in this case, Mujukunda says, I want my kingdom back. You might say that's a fail, because he had the opportunity to take full shelter and he didn't do that. But because he's carrying bhakti in his heart, he'll work through that even if he so-called failed, because he's got bhakti in his heart. And that's going to be nourished and enhanced by the bhakti process and his good association and so forth and so on. Oh, your question yesterday. Well, as I responded to this topic yesterday, somebody that had stopped their chanting is now resuming their chanting. They had stopped chanting for some more than a dozen years, like zip. Their heart hadn't become like, negative towards Krishna. They had just become so spiritually weak and befuddled in the mind, as I said yesterday, manic, in their words. So, but Krishna hasn't abandoned them, and in a higher sense, they haven't abandoned Krishna. Even they weren't saying yes to Krishna, they weren't saying no to Krishna either. Okay, go ahead. Yes. Okay, well, you know that Prabhupada would often use this language, proportionate to. So Krishna's hand is involved, proportionate to. And we want his hand to be, in control of our mind and senses, in proportionate to. And then say conversely, in proportionate to our holding back, we're susceptible to the modes of material nature and our previous tendencies due to guna and karma. We're susceptible to them, proportionate to our lack of submission and surrender and Krishna connection, the internal potency. So now specifically your question, the second part of the question is, where does sin come in? Yes? That's your question? Well, it's the proportionate to. In other words, Krishna's sanction is there for one who's way over at this end of the spectrum. And Krishna's sanction is way over on the other side of the spectrum. So Krishna's involved. Now supposing somebody's a devotee, but they're not, fully Krishna conscious devotee, like most of us in the room. So supposing they're like all us, how much is Krishna's hand involved? And is proportionate to. And if supposing I'm at 20%, then previous tendencies of guna and karma are going to be impacting, sometimes stronger, sometimes weaker. And it's just my previous karma, karmic tendency, vasanas, tendencies are they're there and they're pushing. And sometimes they're in check, and sometimes they rise and show their head and scream and do their thing. So proportionate to. It's not a 1 or a 0. It's not a 0 or a 100. It's not. It's proportionate to. And Krishna's hand is there helping us but he's also not interfering with our, our foolishness. He'll tap us on the shoulder and say, don't do that. And we just ignore and we just keep doing the foolishness, then we're responsible. And his sanction is there, so that his hand is there by sanctioning. For everyone. Yayatamam prapadyante. Tongues to dive. Everyone follows my path in all respects. You've triggered somebody else's.
I'm also thinking along the same.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I appreciate the question because I've been thinking similarly for some time in the regard that when I look back on my Krishna consciousness, which you've known me for a large portion of, I was like, I want to be like Maharaj, like pure devotee. Now, I don't really want to be a pure devotee, and I do, but I also just my reservation in Krishna consciousness has always been, I can't conceive of myself being that surrendered to Krishna. Because in the face of that, it's very existential and scary, and usually I know of times when I've been tested where I was no, I was being tested, and I was no, I'm just not ready for that in different ways. And so recently, in terms of ultimately when it takes shelter of Krishna, not the material energy, my reservation for a long time, it's I would rather cultivate mode of goodness in order to sustain the level of Krishna consciousness I see that's plausible for myself. So it's my aspiration is just to be a decent average person that does Harinam on the weekends and has decent japa, and I just want to maintain that long enough to maybe conceive of myself being more surrendered than that.
I'm listening. This is true confessions, by the way.
Yeah. So with that comes a couple things. It's interesting because in that mood, in that particular vein, I find that my spiritual life's going well. But then sometimes my mind, when things are going quite well, I start to have these aspirations for myself that are tinged with the mistake I've made in the past of time to abandon my material attachments. But now I'm coming to see they've created stability in my life that's actually facilitating greater service, because to some degree I'm simply maintaining certain modes that I'm familiar with, and within that scope I'm able to expand my Krishna consciousness without feeling completely existential and on a limb, so to speak.
I don't know what you mean by feeling existential, but
I'm either a pure devotee or not.
Oh,
kind of.
Okay.
There's a question in there, I think, and not just a confession. Maybe it's just looking for some affirmation, okay, in this life I just want to be an average devotee. And
well, two things, at least. One is, I know that you've heard this before because I've been in the classrooms when you've heard this before. So I know you've heard it before. So here's what you've heard before. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's teaching is, it's important to recognize what level we are and perform our devotional service according to the level where we are. And it's important to aspire for the next level or the next step, because otherwise we'll stagnate. And stagnate means go down. So another way of saying that is, there's no question of simply treading water in devotional service. Either you're going upstream or you're going downstream, because the current is moving downstream. So don't be stagnant. Be dynamic, even in the situation that you described. Be dynamic, with the sense that however long it takes, when it's not impetuous, let me aspire for something that's the next step. And however long I have to incubate in this step, I'm also aspiring for the next step. And I'm looking for what are some connections, some channels that are feasible and sustainable for the next step. And then it's progressive. I don't have to make a quantum jump. This is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's incrementalism. Small steps in the right direction is progress. So maintain. So that's one thing. So that is continue what you're doing because it's realistic, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And aspire to whatever the next step is and be realistic about what the next step is and take guidance and be thoughtful and don't try to jump too far because then you'll jump back and then you'll feel defeated. Oh.
I'm going to ask a specific question regarding that because I think it's kind of a natural follow-up.
Okay, I had a second point, but go ahead.
Please.
It just went away. Let me think again. No, it went away. Another way of saying the same thing is avoid complacency. Krishna consciousness is dynamic, not static. Avoid complacency. Because complacency is an invitation for vulnerability. Let bhakti not just be a shield to protect you, but let bhakti be that which you, to whatever degree, whatever proportionate to whatever bhakti you're carrying over a period of time, that sustainably over a period of time, take shelter of that. That is, the bhakti principle is that Krishna is to be pleased. So in other words, it's not just about your comfort zone, it's about the essence of bhakti is my capacity to be pleasing to Krishna is this present capacity. So that as you described it, I don't need to repeat it. And it's going to be different for different persons, and it's going to be a little different for each one of us over a period of time. There's going to be some ups and the downs. The sine curve is going to go on. But then you have a baseline, and then when you can, you do something. Like here's a practical suggestion, a couple of practical suggestions. When it comes to, like tomorrow is Bhaktisiddhanta's appearance day. So do something for Bhaktisiddhanta. It's not baseline, it's something for Bhaktisiddhanta. And then comes, Ekadasi. Something for Ekadasis. Ekadasis plural. Not too much, but something. So your bhakti muscle is being, 10 of these and 15 of those. A little bit. On the appearance days, read something about those personalities. Do something that's within the scope of what's doable for you. Not too much, but something in the direction of exercising my bhakti muscle. Not just doing something and check the box, but, with devotion. A little bit. A little bit, in course of time. That spiritual strength, you'll feel the spiritual strength from those things, and then make sure that you're continuing to direct them, not to feel better about yourself, but to be thinking more about pleasing Krishna. Just keep that goal. And however long that takes, that's the goal. Okay, that's it. Yeah. Follow up.
Just because we're on that topic, Can one indication of real surrender be that it's happening from a place of strength and confidence in
Yeah.
serving Krishna?
Yeah.
Because it tends to feel like, oh, I have to feel like weak and fragile for it to be considered like surrender.
No, that's. I know the other point. It's this same spiritual adolescence. Welcome to the spiritual adolescence club. And there, you're between where you are and where you want to go. Welcome. It's uncomfortable, but it's an adventure. So that's move the uncomfortable to adventure. You feel uncomfortable. That's good. And from a place of strength. And the strength may be not that, it's this. And so work from that place. That's realistic. And then stretch a little bit. Somebody else? I see 2 hands and 3 hands in the back. I'm going to just take those 3 hands and then that's going to be it because of time. Could you step back? Yeah. Go ahead. I can speak. I can't hear you if you don't speak. I can hear you. Keep talking. And we'll fiddle with the well, we got a replacement microphone. Take the other one. See what happens.
Yeah,
Oh, look at
yeah. Okay, Hari. Okay.
The voice of God.
So the first, you touch best in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna talks about, in one way parampara about Vivashan, Manu, and then he goes, and he also says now that knowledge is gone. So I'm telling you, Arjuna. But when we refer to parampara, we only talk about 4.
We only do what?
We talk about only 4 paramparas. We don't talk about the parampara actually Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita.
You're right.
So neither, yeah. And even at that time, so the other way, at that point, obviously Brahma and everybody was there, but he doesn't talk about these 4 paramparas.
That's right.
So
You read carefully. That's good. Thank you. So now what?
So why? So
Why is
are
that?
we missing something, or is
No,
he
you got
missing
it right.
something?
You got it
or-
right. There's amongst Kshatriyas, it's a detail. Amongst Kshatriyas, they also had a parampara that's not on these 4, and it's that's that parampara that Krishna speaks of, and it was broken. There are 4 that are still intact. That's the good news, and it's mentioned in the Vishnu Purana what those 4 are by name. So this is an additional one. It's okay. There can be additional ones. It's real. It's the principle. Is that all right?
Yeah. So those are the broken, but they exist.
What's that?
Those are the broken paramparas, but they exist.
They did exist.
Yeah, understood. Okay. I have another question.
I'm ready.
Another question is, you mentioned about while making a decision, go into mode of goodness.
Ah,
And
ask him about the mode of goodness. He'll tell you all about it.
so, is it we are saying that mode of passion decisions are not good,
Oh,
and we should not
do
be.
you really
we should
need
move.
an answer to that question?
No, I mean whether we should always move from mode of passion. Our attempt should be to go to mode of
Supposing
goodness.
you're a king. Are you a king? You're not a king. Supposing you're a king. Supposing you're, a worker. Supposing you're in that mode. You're not a brahmana. You're worker. Now what do you do? So your activity may be in that mode, but your decision making,
Oh,
and then you consult those who are in the mode of goodness because they're in the mode of goodness. And if they know you and they're not interested in controlling you, they're interested in guiding, because that's what Brahmanas like to do. They don't like to control. Then, they're a good persons to go to. But, the idea is rather than react or impulsively do something just because I got to do something. Passion. Mode of goodness. You pause minimally that much, and you go to scripture, and you go to sadhu and guru. That's mode of goodness when you're decision making. And we're doing a lot of decision making, kind of like moment to moment. Is that all right?
so we can get back to mode of goodness and make a decision about passion. So
Don't get too intellectual here.
no, I'm saying I want to start a business, but that's mode of passion. So I go to mode of goodness and decide what business I should start.
You got it. And stay under the guidance, even you're going to do business, stay under guidance of persons that are not business people, but they can help guide your consciousness. Now, you're going to have to make moment-to-moment decisions in business and in life. So you can't just have a bunch of brahmanas hanging around you all the time. When you ask them, what do I do next? Do I go my right foot or my left foot next? But, you have that influence guiding in your life, if you're not there yet. Next, we're running. I'm a little anxious about time, so I'm going to move quickly.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, my question is, you were mentioning how test is a good thing in Vaishnava's life, like tests keep coming. But whenever tests come in my life, my mood is like, Krishna, not again, give me a break. That's usually my mindset. And your
Then you can give up living because you'll live your life, and Krishna's going to be helping you. The exam isn't like a kid in the classroom where there's too many exams. It's life, and Krishna's examining, giving you choices. It happens. So don't ask Krishna, don't give me choices, or stop being in my life. Don't do that with Krishna. Embrace the opportunity to have a relationship with Krishna, and He's going to help you. See it that way. The test isn't something like getting spanked. If you don't pass, you get a fail. You get punished. Not like that. Krishna's not like that.
sometimes the amount of suffering that brings upon just makes you feel like, oh, I need a break.
Well, suffering is another thing. So circulate this little article about sorrow. It has to do. It's the principle is embedded in that little essay, little comment that Bhaktisiddhanta made about misfortune when it comes. Back to one of the earlier questions that Uma was asking. Supposing you're trying to be a good devotee, or you're trying to be a devotee of some sort or another, trying to be a devotee, and some misfortune comes, and with the misfortune, then it feels like suffering. What's going on? I don't like this misfortune. I don't like the suffering that goes with the misfortune. Ran, ran, ran. So then your relationship with Krishna needs some realignment. You need to go to the spiritual chiropractor and get realignment. Because what's going on is Krishna's taking away the very source of your misery. The root source of misery is ignorance. The root source of suffering is ignorance. Krishna's taking that away. Don't blame Krishna. Thank Krishna. not for the suffering or the inconvenience or the misfortune. Thank Krishna for taking that false shelter of ignorance away from you. And you may say, ouch, while he's doing it. But, don't say, Krishna, stop doing this. No, this is proportionate too, because if you're not a devotee, you're going to want like a smooth ride. There's no such thing. In the material or the spiritual realm, there's bumps. There's misfortune will come to the non-devotee. Misfortune may come to the devotee. The misfortune that comes to the devotee. Read. Do you like Prabhupada's books?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Me too. One of my verse answers to this question is one of the verses from Brahma Samhita. And it starts like this. Just listen to the beginning, find the verse, read the verse in purport, and give the microphone to somebody else. The verse begins, Yastvindra gopam atavindra mahosva karma bandhana rupam palabhajana atanoti karmani nirdahita kintu cha bhakti bhajam that's you. Bhakti bhajam. Krishna's, for persons like you, Krishna's taking away at the very root, the root cause of suffering, namely ignorance. That's what's going on. And the byproduct of that ignorance, that is activities and nescience, Krishna's taking it away. You may say, ouch, but don't say, please don't do that. Recognize what's going on. Bhaktisiddhanta in this purport calls it fire of ordeal. I have a little document, fire of ordeal document. I'll provide it because he's going to remind me to provide it, and he'll circulate it. The fire of ordeal document. Last question.
I was hoping you could comment on, I think this is 10.7. One who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mine engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this there is no doubt.
You want me to comment on that?
Yes, please. Unalloyed perplexes me, that word. I don't
Really?
know what it means in that context.
So you want to know what alloy and unalloyed means?
Unalloyed in that context, and whatever you'd be,
In that context.
you'd be able to expand upon, I'd be grateful for as well.
Well, the prior discussion has everything to do with what unalloyed means. Alloy, here's a nice, I like visuals. So supposing there's somebody who's doing mining gold from a gold mine, and they know that there's gold ore in the gold mine, and they bring out some gold ore from the gold mine, and it has alloys. So what do? To make gold become free from alloys or unalloyed gold, what do? You make it hot. You melt it. And then the alloys separate out from the gold, and I don't know what the process is, but they remove the alloys from the gold, and then you have unalloyed. So there's, similarly to this question, there may be some heat in life. Now that's the process of making gold, unalloyed gold, or from whatever it is to more, the higher quality gold. So that's the process. But what it means is there isn't the mixture of guna and karma. And this goes back, to her question about, to what extent are we in Krishna's care, as opposed to not being in Krishna's care? Where's the line? And my answer was it's proportionate. And so if we turn our attention to Krishna exclusively, that's unalloyed. Supposing we turn our attention to Krishna 10%, 20%, 50%, proportionate to, Krishna is going to interact with how we turn our attention. Unalloyed is There's only one thing. So you like Bhagavad Gita, so you can look at Bhagavad Gita 2.49. Is that it? Vyavasayatmika buddhi. Eke hakur. 41. 41, yes. Thank you. 2.41. And there's unalloyed. Where eka, and as opposed to bahu, means many. Intelligence is one. Intelligence is many. Bahushaka, many branched. 2.41. There's the answer to your question. And that's unalloyed. And then the rest of the chapters is that the next verses are giving more definition to that unalloyed, or the undivided devotion, no mixture. Generally, there's mixture. I want, and I have a whole bunch of other wants. And it's just fine. It's just par for the course. And then to get to the unalloyed, then your verse. Hearing the glories of Krishna, not just information hearing the glories, but where the heart is open and the heart becomes cleansed. That's the first step, is the heart has to become open. And then the heart can become fully cleansed. And that heart becoming open is, I'm ready, Krishna, please take me to you. And if I'm feeling some inconvenience between where I am and where I want to go, that's quite okay, because it means I'm making progress. You're being very kind, you're taking away the alloys, the mixture of other stuff. And then I can understand in truth the power and glories of Krishna. And then you look at the very next verse, 10.8, and that's where the train is going. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.